Hello everyone, welcome to the director's commentary of the fuel tower run. I'll give you an overview of how it works and how I think it works as a point of interest for the Lost Convoy map. At the moment you can see me taking out all the turrets. This stage is not particularly necessary as though turrets are actually blind. But I just like shooting things, to be fair, so I always have to kind of take it out of the way. So that is the main entrance on the right you can see to get in, but what you need is an access code in order to do that. So we are just taking down the NPCs. From the start of the video you can see the map of where you need to be. But there's basically these four guys on the plateau that you need to take out, and killing the commander, as you can see there, kind of reveals the code after it's quickly decoded. There is actually some purple tier loot as well, so you got the commander implant available. Like say, if you kind of it's useful for kind of mission items, and I think has decent value to it as well. So I think one of my squad mates would have picked that up, so they've entered the code into the pad on the left there, and so we're going to head straight into the fuel tower. Dan is running a objective as he's completing an expedition as this, so he's got to kind of like hack those terminals, or I think there's about 3 or 4 on the way up you need to do on different platforms. In the meantime, I'm just grabbing anything that isn't nailed down. There's actually a useful amount of ammo and equipment as you go up the fuel tower. So the basic principle is, when you're on the outside, you've got to fight off these wave of drones, which can be quite tricky because the drones and the challenges, they're always kind of like chipping away at your shield, and you never really get that kind of regen. So it's something you've got to be on top of in order to not kind of eat too much into shield. But then you get into the kind of the main NPC waves, or the kind of like the rooms you've got to clear. So it can be pretty close quarters. At the moment, the build, there is no kind of friendly fire amongst your squad mates, so you don't have to worry so much about like kind of taking out a squad mate. And also as well, like periodically you get the drones spawning on the outside as well. So if you're running the expedition, if you've got this fuel tower runners of hack the terminals, there's something you've got to complete. Like I said, there's about I think 3 or 4 floors that you need to achieve that on. One thing I do, it's more when I'm kind of running solo, is just like planting some proc mines around. They're not particularly lethal in this build. Like kind of like they don't have a big radius, they don't do a huge amount of damage, and they're pretty easy to avoid basically. But they are kind of an early warn system. If you hear them go off, then that's like there's another player, because you're not gonna once you've cleared those wave of NPCs, they're not going to be triggered by those. And I think that's a good factor of why I like the fuel tower as a POI, as a point of interest, because it has that kind of linear progression. You are working your way through the tower, and you are clearing enemies. There's not a case of fighting those kind of constant respawn waves. So I don't know if you saw there previously, what you have is the, like I say, the room full of the NPCs, and you have actually some turrets in a room above that. You can actually clear them from the floor before. You don't need to kind of like be on the same floor in order to kind of like shoot those down. So this stage is basically just as a squad, not trying to get in each other's way, not trying to like, shoot each other, although like I said, you don't have to worry about friendly fire at this stage in the game. So as well, this build, melee is still particularly overpowered, so using those kind of knife hits is always a good way to eliminate NPCs and also regain some of their shield as well. And so I think this may be the final room before we then go up and clear the like do the kind of the main event of the thing. So again, just playing some prox mines, you get plenty of them as part of this POI, so it's good to use them. So like I say, just kind of grabbing anything that's not nailed down. Like in terms of loot, I kind of have like kind of a loot all, and then just get rid of stuff when I'm at the top. When you're actually getting the the main crux of why you're going up the fuel tower. So this is the last kind of room. Clear those turrets on either side, and then we're going to go up. And it's a one-way system. When you see up all the top here, I'm just prepping a kind of deployable shield for when we do get to the kind of main NPC side of things. And it's kind of a one-way in terms of you'll drop down, you go past the force field, you'll drop down, and then it's like you're basically blocked. You have to clear all the NPCs before the way down is then further unlocked. You have reached the platform. And there is a bit of a way to kind of like, as it's the kind of PV content, there's a way to kind of cheese it, or there's a way to kind of like an optimal way to run it. And with melee being so overpowered, it's a case of just run in, stab everyone in sight, unless you're peekaboo, of course. But then, it's a case of like pull a shield down, kill those drones, and then go for the next wave, basically. And this is the last terminal and part of the like I say, expedition that Dan is completing. And so, because we're running a squad and we know what we're doing, we kind of cleared that NPC wave pretty quickly. Now on to the next one, which is a case of, again, just stab anything that's got a pulse. And when this is why it is achievable to run as a solo player as well. Obviously, kind of like run as a squad to kind of understand the kind of like timing events, or understand the kind of like what you need to do next. But from the look of things, we're about to hit the oppressors, so that's kind of like two effectively heavy drop suits that spawn in, again, certain locations. So it's a case of these, it's the backpack on the back you've got to shoot, the kind of like the big red weak spot. Alternatively, if you're doing solo, chucking a couple of grenades on there was enough to kind of take them down. Once you do, you get that kind of like big pop, and a big chunk of the health's done. So there's one down, and then we'll go on to the next one. And it's the big difference maker in terms of running solo versus running a squad. Solo means you have to use those grenades because you're not going to be able to have that back weak spot access. You've really got to hit them with those explosive weapons. And so that's the kind of the crux of it. Runners are free, can be done pretty quickly. Got the key card to open the container.
Take the key card.
And inside, that's where you'll kind of find the I think Nemesis logic. So Nemesis core will be in the command block, and Nemesis logic will be in these containers here. And it's up to you to whether you share or you get there first and you just swipe it for your mates, or the random squadron with. So, and again, these kind of it's a decent payout running this event. It can be done pretty quickly. You can see like we've got 9 minutes 26 left still on the clock in terms of to get out and extract. And again, you get those kind of like the Nemesis logic is the kind of key thing you want to get, but there is a good of like kind of amounts of kind of crafting equipment as well. And I think I'm leaving my squad mates to just kill all the NPCs that have spawned as well, because again we did it so kind of quickly. You kind of have that additional wave that comes down, and obviously you just need to clear that before you can then carry on the loot. And like I said, I have a kind of policy to just grab everything in sight that's not nailed down. So let's see what's available. And again, you'll need this kind of equipment when you're going down, and it's worth kind of checking all the containers as well, because things may not be like, they not seem like as valuable container, but actually you can find those kind of resonant fire cores and other gold tier items that are really quite handy. Also as well, like if you're running kind of solo, it's kind of like you got to have that kind of heightened awareness of like if there are other players around, or you're going to be followed in, because whilst I've got the loot here, it is not safe. I need to get it off and extracted before I can actually claim it. We've got like 8 minutes left to go, so again, like plenty of time. I think it's the total time to get across the map is about like 3 times, or certainly from like any point in the map to an extraction point is not very far. So I think just pinging that we've got to go like all the way to the bottom of this instance. And on the way down, there are some additional containers to collect that have some decent stuff in. It can be like kind of ammo and kind of like deployables, but we also might get the random kind of gold item as well. As you can see, I'm pretty loaded up now on ammo and stuff like that, so easy to defend myself. And again, it's a case of like, you don't want to get greedy as well. Like if there's nothing around, if you can't hear anything, you'll probably be fine. But you don't need to claim absolutely everything, or certainly like when you've got the most valuable stuff, or you've done the kind of like the Nemesis logic side of things, you don't really need to keep going back for a bit more energy ammo or something like that. Going to this section, you will incur full damage. There's no way to avoid that, but just simply regen your shield. Wait for that shield to regen and heal up if you've jumped down to the bottom. And now it's a case of just clearing through the map. What I find is obviously vary your route based on what extraction point you're going to. I think at the moment we've got to go to the far kind of south of the map, so we kind of want to avoid making too much attention here. This is a case of running through. You can actually run under the command block or slightly in front of it, and that's a good way to kind of avoid a lot of attention. Certainly, you're going under that kind of like oppressor side of things. And yeah, unfortunately, I find like the NPCs do follow you a long time here. So in terms of like you want to eliminate stuff that is going to follow you, and in this case drones, because I find them problematic in terms of like chipping away your shield. And yeah, not allowing you to regen. So now we've just simply the mad dash to extract. And again, you don't want to get too separated from your squad here. I get distracted killing NPCs, but really I should be further ahead. But you know, guys, my team squad mates will be clearing the path if there is anything there. And I find that the way we're going is a fairly quiet route. I'm not sure many people use this because it's you know, people tend to go like through the command block rather than kind of underneath it. But it is, like I say, when you're kind of just making a beeline for that extraction point, it is pretty handy. So this build is actually before, I think, the 0.72 patch. That one increased the extraction time, increased the delay, which, you know, I think is a good change. But in terms of the activation time, that became like a really long press to actually start the process. So I haven't played too much since that change has been made, but it's a case of, you know, see how that plays out. And I think, yeah, the good thing of running a squad is it's a lot easier to extract. I think we're kind of finding there's already some fighting going on the, yeah, on the point itself or around it. And yeah, I think they're making some rookie mistakes as well in terms of like rather than just simply just jumping into the beam and getting out of there, they're going to continue to fight and pay the price of that. And again, it depends like how well you know the game and how kind of competent you are as well. In terms of like for our team, it could have made more sense just to simply jump into the beam as well. But some members are a bit more bloodthirsty than others, and you know, you can't let another guy extract. Yeah, so I think in this case we didn't have to worry too much about the, you know, activation delay. And I'm filling the time basically whilst I wait for the next yeah, next extract to go up to just kill things basically. But yeah, and again as well, like, it depends like what scenario you're in. At the moment we've obviously just run the fuel tower, I've got some good loot, and kind of takes discipline sometimes you just to make sure that you don't just get carried away and don't just start hunting other players. I think I'm just gonna loot, see if this guy's got anything good, which is probably a risky move and unnecessary because again, like I say, we've just done the fuel tower. That's like kind of arguably like the second best loot in the game. So yeah, that's not necessary basically. So there you have it. Managed to extract without too much problem. And yeah, I'd say that was a good run. Like fuel tower we did pretty quickly. We had plenty of time to kind of get to the extract as well. And again, I find it's kind of that's the kind of engaging content I like. You know, it's that kind of that sense of progression through the POI. The ability to kind of like take enemies down. Also, you know, you need to watch your kind of like your back. You know, kind of like lay traps or kind of use motion sensors to kind of like pay attention to enemies coming. So, or you know, potential player ambushes. So yeah, that I think the fuel tower is one of the kind of the better POIs. Certainly enjoyed it, and yeah, definitely not easy to run with a squad. So yeah, thanks Peekaboo and Dan for supporting me with this one, and yeah, we got it done. Thanks everyone, and that's the fuel tower.